Yeah. Yes.
Hi, everybody. Really excited to be here. Hi, you can call me Ash. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm transmasculine and non-binary. And if you're not sure what all that means, please find me after the session. I'd be happy to answer your questions. In October of 2022, I was lying on an operating table. But this isn't a cancer story quite yet. The surgery I was having was one that in many ways I had been planning for my entire life. But in the weeks and months leading up to that surgery, I planned for not only the surgery and the recovery, but also for the life that I was about to embark on after surgery. The stakes were high, and the expectations even higher. Because I was having gender-affirming top surgery. 11 days after that surgery, I sat on the couch in my living room, alone, anticipating what I thought would be a routine follow-up call with my top surgeon. As the call started, I realized that it would be anything but routine. And in fact, as my surgeon began to speak, she told me that they had unexpectedly found a tumor during surgery. They'd received the pathology results, and I was being diagnosed with cancer. Breast cancer. The pink cancer. I don't remember a lot about the moments that happened during that call, but I do remember a feeling that everything that I had planned for, those high expectations, everything that I had hoped for, was slipping through my hands. As I sat there and listened to my surgeon explain what would be next, I realized that my story was no longer about trans joy. It was about cancer. And that's the thing about breast cancer. It doesn't care about gender. Breast cancer can affect trans men and trans women, cisgender men, cisgender women, and anybody, anywhere along the gender binary. And if it wasn't for that top surgery, my cancer experience would have looked a lot different. Thanks to gender-affirming care, my cancer experience was much different than it could have been. But before we get into all of that, let's take a second and just talk about what gender-affirming care really is. Because I think a lot of people, when they think of gender-affirming care, we immediately think of things like hormone therapy and surgeries for trans people. And that's exactly true. It is those things. But gender-affirming care is also so much more. It is so much more broad than that. And in fact, I would be willing to bet that every single person in this room is engaged in some form of gender-affirming care at some point in time in their lives. Because gender-affirming care encompasses so many things. Hair restoration, hair removal, hormone support for menopause, hormone support for low testosterone, Botox, plastic surgery, the list goes on and on and on. Gender-affirming care is simply healthcare. Gender-affirming care are the ways in which we identify ourselves and we affirm our identities. It's the way that we make ourselves feel like our unique selves, inside and out. A few of the ways that gender-affirming care affect me directly, there were 3 ways. 1, if not for my access to top surgery and the affordability of having it covered by insurance, my cancer would have much likely been discovered later. My prognosis would have been much worse. The second thing that happened that was fortunate for me in terms of gender-affirming care in my cancer experience was that my top surgeon was able to vet and refer me to an oncology team that treated me with dignity, respect, and affirmed my gender for me. And the third way that gender-affirming care played into my cancer experience was a little bit outside of just me, and it was really about everybody. Because again, I just said a minute ago that gender-affirming care is simply healthcare. And the truth of that is that without access to gender-affirming care, and we are watching it in real time disappear in front of us. So I want to underscore the importance of gender-affirming care across across the board, but also in oncology, because gender-affirming care is a conduit to safe and approachable and affirming healthcare for folks who tend to have significant barriers to healthcare, to getting their own basic healthcare needs met, to getting preventative screenings. And so by, just like my top surgeon, who vetted and referred me to an oncology team, gender-affirming care providers can also do the same thing for their patients who fear traditional medical settings. They can refer those patients to safe and affirming healthcare. Access to safe and affirming healthcare means that folks like me don't show up sicker and with poor prognoses. Being trans and having cancer is really hard. There aren't a lot of resources, and those resources, they don't come to you. You have to go find them yourself. There were times during my cancer experience where I was so struck by devastating feelings of loneliness and isolation that I wasn't sure how I was going to get through it all. But I did get through it, because I eventually did go find those resources. And in finding those resources, I found community. And in community, I found healing. But more importantly, what I found is the power of storytelling and the power of using my voice to be able to speak to people like me who are experiencing similar things that I was experiencing, but also to step into rooms like this and to speak to people like you, to talk about the things that I went through. And as soon as I started to find that community and the power of using my voice, the power of storytelling, the healing was unstoppable. Cancer tried to rob me of my trans joy, but I took it back. Today, on this stage, and in front of all of you, this is trans joy. I am trans joy. All of you sitting here are not only a witness to that trans joy, but a part of that joy as well. Gender-affirming care saves lives, and trans rights are human rights. Thank you for